Here's just some further review on linear inequalities. Okay, so we're going to start with just comparing two numbers using inequality symbols, greater than, less than, or equal to. -3 and 2, -3 is less than 2, right? 6.5 compared to 6.3, 6.5 is greater than 6.3. 1/2 and 3/4. You can either picture the size of 1/2, or you can turn them both into decimals and see which one's the bigger decimal. 3/4 is a bigger decimal than 1/2, so we say 1/2 is less than 3/4. 0.25 is actually the same as 1/4. 4, I always think of as quarters. The quarter is worth 25 cents. There are 4 quarters in one whole dollar. All right, to graph inequalities, you work with symbols. So this graph is not completely accurate to my math lab. That empty, hollowed out circle becomes parentheses, and then the full colored in circle becomes the brackets. And you decide which way the brackets are going based on which way the arrow is going. Good. So less than looks like this when we graph it. Less than or equal to looks like this when we graph it. Greater than looks like this. Greater than or equal to looks like this. This means not included or open. The bracket means included or closed. As we know, the non-ending interval will include infinity. It goes on forever like these arrows. It is always expressed as being open. Okay, infinity is always open. Identify solutions to inequalities and graph the inequalities. So here we have x is less than or equal to 1. Good, that's how I would write it, or that's how I would say it. I would find 1 on my graph. I would use a bracket because it does include 1. And then less than is towards 0. Good. The interval notation, remember you're reading from left to right. If you see an arrow going that way, you're going to start with a negative infinity symbol, okay? Any arrow going that way forever is a negative infinity symbol as your interval notation. So parentheses, because infinity only comes with parentheses. It's never the bracket. It is always open. It is never closed. And then it stops at 1. It included 1, so we use a bracket. This is -1 is less than x. I think I mentioned it, but I don't like it when the number's on this side and x is on this side. So you can also write it as x is greater than -1. Good. Now we're going to find -1 on our graph. X is greater than -1 and not equal to. So it's not a bracket. That was a bracket because of the equal to symbol. There is no bracket here, so it's just parentheses. Again, when you're making interval notation, you're just reading from left to right like an English sentence. So we're going to start with that open parentheses, -1, and it goes on forever. So just like this one went on forever in that direction, so we use negative infinity. This one goes forever in this direction, so we're going to use positive infinity. Positive infinity will never have a bracket. X is less than -1. So here it's similar to this one. X is less than or equal to -1, but not the same, right? So here's -1. You can put it anywhere. It's less than. So it's that same arrow going to the left, but this is not a bracket, it's parentheses. Good. Interval notation. I see an arrow going towards negative infinity, so I write negative infinity, and then it ends at -1. It does not include -1, so it's a bracket. 9 is less than or equal to p, which is the same as p being greater than or equal to 9, right? Flipping it around. So I need to find 9. It's greater than or equal to. So because of that equal to, I'm going to make it a bracket. And it's greater than. So it's every number in that direction. If I'm reading it from left to right, it starts with a bracket. That bracket's at 9, and then it goes forever. -4 is less than x, or x is greater than -4. So I need a -4 on my graph. Greater than, because there is no or equal to, it's going to be a parentheses. And then we're just going to say greater than -4 would be in this direction. Reading it from left to right, parentheses, -4, and it goes on forever, so infinity. X is less than or equal to 16. Here is 16. X is less than or equal to. Again, because of this equal to, we're going to make a bracket. Less than goes this way. Good. All right. So interval notation, if I'm reading from left to right, I don't see anything that starts this. So it starts at negative infinity. It stops at 16, and 16 is included because of that equal sign, so we use a bracket. Now, if I only have the picture, remember, this is not what my math lab is going to use, so I'm just going to change these. The open circle is the same as parentheses. And then the closed circle is the same as a bracket. Good. Okay. So just looking at the graph, what is this inequality? Here, remember, I like to go from graphs to interval notation, so I'm going to skip the inequality and just write the interval notation. Left to right, it doesn't start anywhere. Sorry, excuse me. It does not start anywhere. It goes on forever. So that interval notation will begin at negative infinity, but it does end at 2, and it is it does not include 2. Good. So I know it's the letter X, and I know it's the number 2. If it has a parenthesis symbol, that means there's no equal sign. So it's only either greater than or less than. When I look at this graph, or I look at a negative infinity sign, does that imply less than or greater than? X is less than 2. Okay. Between the terms negative infinity all the way up to here, those are all less than 2. Okay. And remember, if we had put the 2 here and the x here, we couldn't say 2 is less than x. We would have to say 2 is greater than x. X is less than 2 because x is everything that is covered by that line that goes on forever. Those are all less than 2, and it goes on forever. All right. Here we have a -4. And we have x, right? So it starts at -4. It is parentheses. I guess I should have put it more in the middle. And it goes on forever. So into infinity. Because of the parentheses, it can only be a less than or a greater than. There is no equal to because there's no bracket. So is this line above 4 or below 4? Are these all greater than 4 or are these all less than -4? Sorry, not 4, -4. These are all greater than -4, right? So x is greater than -4. The interval notation is parentheses -4, comma, infinity, close the parentheses. Good. Here we have the number 7, and it's the line is going towards -infinity. So if I see the arrow going towards -infinity, I can start with -infinity, and that line that line ends at a +7 and includes the 7 because of that bracket that is written on the 7. Good. So the inequality will have x and it will have a 7, right? It does have greater than or equal to because of that bracket. So do we think 6 is less than, or sorry, not greater than or equal to, sorry, greater than or equal to or less than or equal to? All I'm saying is because of this, we have this, okay? And then we have to decide, is it x is greater than 7 or x is less than 7, okay? So 6 is less than 7. So x is less than or equal to 7. Good. Here we have an arrow going towards -infinity. So we're parentheses, -infinity. It ends at -3 and includes -3. So there's a bracket. So my inequality will have the letter x and the number -3. Because of that bracket, it will have or equal to. And then we just decide, is -4 less than -3 or greater than -3? And that's how we make that decision. This one, we start our interval notation at 3 and it goes on forever. That parentheses means it does not include 3. So x is 4 is greater than 3. There's no equal to because there's no bracket. I wrote the wrong thing as I was talking. X is greater than 3. All right, these are one-step inequalities. So you're just going to do one step and then you're going to graph it and put it in interval notation. X plus 12 is less than 20. So we'll subtract 12 because what we want to do here is get the x alone. X is less than 20 minus 12 is 8. X is less than 8 means I find 8. Use a parentheses and go in this direction, the less than direction. So my interval notation says it starts at -infinity and goes until 8. D is less than 5 is greater than -7. I'll add 5 to both sides. And I get D is greater than -2. Here's -2. There's no equal sign, so I know it's parentheses, and greater than -2 would be in this direction. That direction is always the greater than direction. Interval notation would be parentheses, -2, all the way to infinity. A divided by -2 is greater than or equal to 4. This has a little sign next to it because if you have to multiply or divide by a negative, you're going to flip the sign. So a divided by -2, to get rid of that -2, we need to multiply by -2. Anything I do to this side, I have to do to this side. Again, if I'm multiplying by a negative, I flip the sign. -2, sorry, that wasn't very clear. -2 over 1 times a over -2. Now I have a -2 in the top and the bottom, so they cancel out. Good. So that -2 that should be up here cancels that -2 out, and we're just left with a on that side. We're left with a flipped sign because we multiplied by a negative. 4 times -2 is a -8. A is less than or equal to -8. Equal to, because of the equal to symbol, we need to make it a bracket, and it's less than So I'm going to draw the arrow that way. That means it starts at negative infinity, goes to -8 with a bracket. Means includes -8. All right, solve the inequalities and graph the solutions. Write using interval notation. X divided by 3 is just like a divided by -2 is greater than or equal to -2. So I need to multiply by 3. Multiply by 3. Those cancel. I get x is greater than or equal to -6, right? So because of this, it's going to be a bracket at -6. And it's going to go in the positive direction because of that greater than symbol. So my interval notation will be bracket -6, comma, infinity. Here we have -9 is greater than or equal to x minus 3. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. -3 greater than or equal to x. Again, we can turn that into x is less than or equal to -3 because I think that's easier to understand. Here's -3. It's less than -3, so it's going to be going in this direction. And because of that equal sign, it's going to have a bracket. So we'll start at -infinity and go to -3 with a bracket. Here's -9r. -9r is less than 27. Divide by -9. Divide by -9. Remember, when we divide by a negative, we flip the sign. So now we have r is greater than 27 divided by -9. -3. Good. R is greater than -3. Here's -3. Does not include -3, so we have the parentheses. So that is parentheses -3 to infinity. Does the inequality sign change for any of the following? We are taking x, we're dividing it by 2. So this does not change the sign. We do not need to flip the sign because we're not dividing by a negative. Here we're dividing by a -3. So we do need to change this sign. Good. Here we're dividing by a -10. So we do need to change the sign. Here we're dividing by a +4. So we do not need to change the sign. And what I mean is this will still be x is greater than 5 because we did not divide by a negative. Here it's going to be x is less than or equal to -4 because we divided by a negative. Here it's going to be x is greater than -1/2 because we had to change the sign. We divided by a -10. And then here it's just going to remain x is greater than -4. We change the sign when you multiply or divide by a negative number. Number 2 asks, which interval notation represents the set of all real numbers greater than 2 and less than or equal to 20? So greater than 2 and x is less than or equal to 20. So if I had to graph these, here's 2 and here's 20, right? X is greater than 2 but doesn't include 2, so it starts like that. And then x is less than or equal to 20. So if I had to write that in interval notation, I would start with parentheses 2, comma, 20, close it with brackets. All right, just to review again, 7 is less than x is greater than 7. Find 7, x is greater than, so it'll look like this. 7, positive infinity. T is greater than, or sorry, t is less than or equal to negative 0.5. Negative 0.5 is going to be, well, I mean, it's up to you. If this is 0 and this is 1, negative 1, obviously. Negative 0.5 is going to be right between those two. Because of that equal sign, I'm going to make it a bracket and go this way. So my interval notation is negative infinity to negative 0.5 bracket. D is greater than negative 12. So here's negative 12. Greater than negative 12. Parentheses, negative 12 to infinity. Here we have k is greater than or equal to 5. Here's 5. Bracket, because of the equal sign, goes forever. So it'll be a bracket, 5 to infinity. Good. Here we have bracket, parentheses, 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 bracket. All right, here we have 5 to infinity. So I think that means that x is greater than or equal to 5. Here we have from negative infinity to negative 11. What I said that is. So I think that means x is less than negative 11. Does not include it. Here we have negative infinity to 4. X is less than 4. Here it goes from negative 3.3 to infinity. So our inequality is x is greater than negative 3.3. Here we have negative 3.5 to infinity. So I'm going to say x is greater than negative 3.5. Here we have including 9 to infinity. So I'm going to say that it's x is greater than or equal to 9. T minus 12 is greater than or equal to 16. We'll just add 12. 16 plus 12 is 28. T is greater than or equal to 28. That means it's a bracket and it goes that way. 28 to infinity, parentheses. Y divided by 6 is less than or equal to 2. To get rid of dividing by 6, you multiply by 6. Y is less than or equal to 12 because that wasn't being multiplied by a negative number, so we leave the sign alone. Y is less than or equal to 12. Because of that equal to, we have the bracket, so we have negative infinity to positive 12. 7x is less than negative 14. Divide by 7. Divide by 7. X is less than negative 2. X is less than negative 2, so it'll be parentheses. In the negative infinity direction, start at negative infinity, go to negative 2. 8r is, negative 8r is less than 16. Divide by negative 8. Divide by negative 8. R is greater than negative 2, right? So we changed that sign because of the negatives we were dividing by. R is greater than negative 2, so here's negative 2. R is greater than it. Negative 30 is greater than negative 5p. Divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5. Flip the sign because we're dividing by a negative. P is greater than 30 divided by 5 is 6, and negative divided by negative is a positive, so P is greater than 6. Here's 6. P is greater than that, so we'll start at 6, go to infinity. Negative P over 6 is not really going to come up in our class, but you can put the negative with the 6 or with the P. You don't really want a negative P, so I'm going to put it with the 6. So I'm going to multiply this, or sorry, so I can rewrite it. I don't want to rush. As P over negative 6 is less than negative 6. Good. So now I can multiply that by negative 6. And I'm left with P is greater than, just to go step by step, P is greater than 6 times 6 is 36, but I multiplied by a negative 6, so I need to change that sign. So it's actually P is greater than 36 because 6 times 6 is 36. So here's 36, P is greater than that. So our interval notation will be, oh, sorry, it should not be a bracket. It should just be parentheses. Parentheses 36 to positive infinity. 3/5 h is greater than or equal to negative 3. Another way to write this is 3 times h divided by 5, because this is also the same as 3h over 5. So anytime you see a fraction bar, that's also a division symbol. So we're taking h, we're multiplying it by 3, and we're dividing it by 5. So that means I can multiply both sides by 5. So I just have 3h here because 5 being multiplied by something that you're dividing by 5 just leaves you with that original. We're multiplying it by a positive 5, so we don't have to worry about flipping the signs. And then we divide by 3 to get rid of that being multiplied by 3. H is greater than or equal to negative 5. Because of the equal to, it'll be a bracket. Negative 5 to infinity. So when you see a fraction like this, 3/5 h, negative 3, the quickest way to do all of that is just to say this is being multiplied by 3 and divided by 5. So if I want to cancel that out, I'm going to multiply it by 5 and divide it by 3. Good. Then if these cancel this cancels this, you just have h. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15 over 3. Negative 15 over 3 is negative 5. Here we're going to subtract 9. Subtract 9. 16 minus 9 is 7. 7 is less than or equal to h, which is h is greater than or equal to 7. All right, multi-step linear inequalities, just starting. I might skip this because we've done it, right? B is greater than negative 6. Looks like that. X is less than or equal to 6. Looks like that. This inequality is negative, oops, sorry. Interval notation is negative 12 to infinity. The inequality is x is greater than negative 12. Here we have the interval notation of negative infinity to positive 9 included. So x is less than or equal to 9. All right, now 2 steps. Here we're gonna, just like you do all the other solving for regular equations, 13 minus 1 is 12. You want to do addition and subtraction first, then multiplication and division. So divide by 2, divide by 2. M is greater than 6. Four times x plus 3 is less than or equal to 24, becomes 4x plus 12, less than or equal to 24. I'm going to subtract 12. 4x less than or equal to, don't worry that we're not dividing, so you don't need to change the signs. 12, divide by 4, divide by 4. X is less than or equal to 3.